Monday, 26th of May, listener. Thank you so much for joining us for what is our final Euro show of the season. I'm here right now in a remote podcasting sense at least with buddies James Horncastle.
Hello, James.
Hi. And also Julien Laurens.
Hello, boys.
Hello. Later on, Seb Stafford-Bloor and Pol Ballús will be along. Bags to talk about. And James, where are you right now?
I am in the Sheraton San Siro, which is where the final day of the transfer window happens in Italy, where all the clubs get together and it's like a trading floor and, sort of throwing documents at each other, trying to get players signed. It's also where the away team tends to stay. It's one of the hotels where the away team tends to stay when they come and play at San Siro. So that's my plug. By all means, come and sponsor us. Pay us lots of money. Hotel.
And you're there as part of your build-up to Saturday's very exciting Champions League final, James.
That's correct, James.
Have you spoken to anyone yet?
Yes, I spoke to Beppe Marotta, the Inter president, on Saturday. I must say, I thought he would call that interview off, given that Inter lost the title on Friday. But to his great credit, he honored the interview, and he was interesting. But the media day is coming, and that's you've done that before, James. It's where we get to speed date essentially every Inter coach and player.
Bet you'd love to speed date the PSG team, wouldn't you, Jules?
I have already.
Have you? What did they have to say for themselves?
It was really good. Ours was on Wednesday in Paris. Apart from the rain, that's time, as you would expect, pouring down when the players finished the training and that we were supposed to do the interviews. But I saw a lot of my friends. I saw Marquinhos, I saw Vitinha, I saw Luis Enrique, I saw Désiré Doué and Ousmane Dembélé to finish off what was a lovely morning at the PSG training ground. Loads of people were there from pretty much everywhere around Europe. Sky Italia was there. We're doing live the training on Sky Italia, for example. So it was really cool, and you could feel the excitement, I think, from everybody around there before the final.
We'll be hearing very, very shortly how the mood is, what your sense is of the momentum behind these two European giants ahead of Saturday's clash. But I guess we could launch straight away before that into a moment of the week.
I mean, mine was that media day that I've just mentioned on Wednesday to be there. Yeah, because it was really cool, and you get access that you don't really have for training because PSG, like a lot of English clubs, for example, don't open anything really. You come for the press conference of the manager. Usually, you don't see training apart from 10 minutes where they just run around and do warm-ups, and then you leave. Always this time, the whole training was open. We saw an 11 against 11. We saw little drills. And then you get to see the players for the interviews that a lot of them you'll be able to see on TNT in the UK, but also you hang out with people, you hang out with players, you hang out with people at the top of the club. And then because it's so exciting to be 10 days away from a Champions League final, people are chilled and it's relaxed, and you've got great stories to tell you. I saw Paoletta, who was there, the former PSG striker, and you get a good sense of what where everybody is at. So that was really, really cool to be there and part of that.
Also, if you go to Inter, you get a pen and a pair of headphones. Hey, James.
Yeah, that's true. Are you wearing those headphones now? Still from 2 years ago?
No, these are not. These are non-branded. Strict athletic guidelines on that.
Okay. They are very strict. The whole training complex at Inter had just been done up after when we went. And it's quite it's quite a bougie hotel kind of feel at Piano Gentile these days. Although having spoken to not just Marotta, but also sort of people in ownership, I think they're going to upgrade that even further. So it would be like a 6-star hotel. So yeah, I'm looking forward. I just got the list through players we'll be speaking to. It's a long list, I must say. Barella, Bissek, Damian, Di Marco, Lauti, Lautaro, Mkhitaryan, Taremi, Thuram, Inzaghi, and Pupi Zanetti. I went to Pupi Zanetti's steak place today, the one in Sheraton San Siro rather than El Botinero. And yeah, very good. Although the menu is different from the one on in the Bottinera, where he has his famous erotic potatoes.
Who? Javier Zanetti?
Yes. I was surprised as you are, James. Someone with his hair that's been in one position his entire life for his erotic potatoes.
Not the only thing that's been in one position his entire life has been my read on him, which is why the whole notion of him and eroticism. But were the potatoes erotic?
The potatoes are ridged.
Was that your moment of the week, James?
No, it wasn't. It was probably the aftermath of Naples on Friday night, Napoli winning the league for the fourth time, and just the number of scenes. Like when Napoli won the Scudetto 2 years ago, there was this car which was turned into a boat, and the boat drove through the city, and that appeared again. There were people who basically taken a chainsaw to the kind of tops of their car to make it like a drop top car. That was interesting. There were lots of people singing the Pedro song. Pedro has become this, I would say, even more mythical figure than Maradona in Naples after what Pedro did last week, which was come off the bench for Lazio, score twice against Inter, keep Napoli in front. You just hear in the title race, you just hear Napoli fans singing Pedro, what is it? Pedro, 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 Pe. Oh, Pedro, 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 Pe. And lots of videos of Neapolitans singing that to kind of tourists who have been caught up in Naples, non-football fans who have clearly been sort of worn out by everything that they've seen and experienced. There was a video of a German tourist sort of asleep on a bench whilst Neapolitans sang the Pedro song at him. And then great videos of McTominay just like in various nightclubs in Naples, just living his best life. McFratma. So yeah, incredible, James.
So the City A title race went down to the final match day. Napoli were leading Inter by 1 point as the two teams took to the field on Friday night, but nerves were jangling. They'd drawn 2 straight games, had Napoli, so when they were still struggling to get past Cagliari and then Inter took the lead at Como, they began to fear the worst. Were the Nerazzurri going to sorpassare? For 21 minutes, they were behind in the title race, Napoli, and then who should step up and how he stepped up but Scott McTominay.
Yeah, I mean, he scored some really good goals this year, sort of driving runs, shots from distance, curlers, headers. But, I mean, this will obviously be the most special of the lot. McTominay in double figures for the season, his team's top scorer, even playing in midfield. I know people have said that, Scotland's Steve Clarke deserves a lot of credit for, sort of McTominay's attacking instincts recently. But I think Conte knew exactly how he wanted to use McTominay when he signed him, particularly off Lukaku. Lukaku, who, won his second league title in Italy. Again, I don't think you should necessarily take that for granted, even though Conte is the closest thing to a guarantee of glory in Italian football, because yes, Lukaku won the Scudetto with Inter, with Conte, and that was his best ever season of his life. And then, in his subsequent loan spells back at Inter, missed chances in the Champions League final in Istanbul 2 years ago. Pretty underwhelming at Roma last year, I would say. Many people just didn't think Lukaku was the same player. He showed himself to be a different player in this season. Double figures for assists. And, after McTominay's goal, he got the clincher as well.
Well, that was a lovely run by Lukaku, and it brought to mind other famous goals from Serie A. But, Jules, that McTominay finish, did you know he had that in his locker?
I think he's probably has the instinct in the box now, which we saw at United too, making late runs and just not being a finisher because he's not a number 9, but just having that, because he's so strong physically too, he can be very good in the box for that. But that was a lovely, lovely finish. And to be fair, I thought if they get at halftime drawing, that's going to get a bit nervy now, despite the atmosphere, despite the fact that they were not playing badly, but they were still 0-0, and Inter, on the other hand, had obviously scored first. So I thought that even the timing of the goal is beautiful. And I think there's probably a few tattooists in Naples who would tattoo that kind of volley from behind with a number and everything. But the timing was maybe even more important.
That's already happened, Jules.
Where is it? Where did you go? Which buttock?
Yeah, it's my lower back. But no, no, that's already happened, and it remains to be seen if the hospitals of Naples will be issuing birth certificates in the coming hours to Scott Maiello or Scott Esposito.
What a season, though. 12 goals, all in all. Named on Friday as the most valuable player of this league campaign. Just incredible. And, I mean, there are a lot of things that if you revisit Napoli's opening day defeat against Verona, Conte saying they melted like snow in the sun. But also, I think what most of us thought when and folks probably down in Naples maybe thought when McTominay was signed, because he wasn't exactly top of their shopping list. And if United were letting him go...
Just another example of a player who has enjoyed his football and shown his worth somewhere else. And you can point to Anthony doing that at Betis. You can talk about even Rashford having a little mini renaissance for a time at Villa as well. But I think it's great that McTominay has spent his entire career in Manchester. The one time he leaves, he goes to Naples of all places and wins the league in his first season. And if there is a place to win the league, and do it in the way he's done it, where he's really such a big Neapolitan favorite. He's the player that Neapolitans are walking around the streets with name and number on the back of their shirts at the moment. To do that and to see the affection in which he's held not only by fans, locals, but also his teammates. He gave this really charming interview on DAZN after the full-time whistle, where he was, he said he understood Italian, but he didn't want to speak Italian. And he would keep dropping in little bits of Italian, Mr. Conte, troppo alto, the intensity, troppo alto, always too high, just too high. Yeah, it's one of those things you just take for granted. A number of Brits have come over, and Conte has sort of helped them become the first Brits in a long, long time to win the Italian league. Ashley Young, for example. I think people forget Ashley Young was part of that Inter team, and quite a big part of that Inter team that won the title. And, Conte just, I think I've said this before, Conte is just really good at going and winning the league with different teams and taking kind of spare parts from Man United and kind of showing Man United what he could have achieved on a budget, because it's hardly like United's most expensive signings. McTominay came from their academy, young, not expensive. So, yeah, I mean, Man United, Conte is probably back available again. So
I'm going to ask you about that. Just one stat about McTominay, which I think is significant. 12 goals in total. 8 of those, he opened the scoring. So he was the guy. He was the guy they looked to when things weren't going their way. And time again, he bent the game to his will. You could ask if another player from Manchester will soon be enjoying similar success in Naples under Conte, and I'm referring, of course, to Kevin De Bruyne, linked strongly with a move, possibly more than linked. I'm not sure by the time you hear this. But perhaps the bigger story in all of this is the fact that, much like Spalletti when he won the title 3 seasons ago, Conte is, James, set to depart already? I
mean, that's the expectation at the moment. Both Conte and De Laurentiis were ambiguous to the extent that listening to them on Friday night, you thought, okay, well, if one knew that the other was staying, then they would just come out and say it. Look, it's De Laurentiis' birthday at the moment as we're recording. I think he's on either Ischia or Capri celebrating. And from what we can gather, the relationship has not broken down in the same way that the relationship between Spalletti and De Laurentiis broke down, to the point where Spalletti's recently said that he hasn't heard from or spoken to De Laurentiis since he basically left. I think with Conte, it is more likely a case of there being opportunities out there that have appealed to him in a long time, and circumstances changing at various clubs, which mean they might consider him. So you look at the job that Igor Tudor has done, in fact, I'm just giving a post-match interview in Venice. You look at the job that Igor Tudor has done. I mean, Tudor will think that he's probably done enough to earn that job on a permanent basis at Juve.
Jules, Michael Cox writing, Conte is one of the great coaches. He's won the title in his first season at clubs who have come 7th, 10th and 10th the previous season. You don't fluke that. I mean, the case of Napoli, he comes into a team that's lost the two players who completely were identified with their success last time, Osimhen and Kvaratskhelia, who, by the way, has now won the title twice this season.
Yeah, that's right. He will get two medals. The counter argument to that, though, is the fact that taking over those teams that finished badly before him meant no European competitions, which is obviously, as we've been saying all season long, a massive advantage. When you're Inter and you're still playing a Coppa Italia semi-final over 2 legs, the Champions League final to come up, plus the league, then it's many more games than Napoli. I suspect Inter will probably play James 20 games more than Napoli this season, something like that. I wouldn't be surprised. It makes a massive difference.
I think it does. I would say that when Conte did that for the first time at Juventus in 2011-12, whenever anybody else took over a team that had fallen out of the European places and basically could focus on the league all week, they never made a virtue of it in the way that Antonio Conte has consistently done. I don't want to bring up Walter Mazzarri at Inter, but I mean, there are lots of, examples like that. So, and the other thing I think with Napoli is, yes, they spent a lot of money in the summer, but those players arrived late. And also, I think if you look at Napoli's team, and you name it, like, how many people out there are making hype videos about Alex Meret? How many people out there are, cutting kind of Euro pop to Amir Rahmani? How many people beyond Cesc Fabregas and people like us are really excited about, Stanislav Lobotka and that sort of thing, or seeing Spinazzola play to sort of 70% of the player he was at the Euros 3 years ago when Italy won the Euros. Also losing Kvaratskhelia in January, your best player, who. McTominay had a fantastic season from kind of as soon as he stepped off the plane at Capodichino. But I think if Kvaratskhelia is there, we're probably talking about McTominay less, because there's another match winner there. And so to lose him in January was massive. And the injuries that they suffered in the second half of the season made it very difficult, even though they did have time to prepare for games and that sort of thing. So, I agree with Cox here. I think, he's the first coach ever, unless you count Fabio Capello, to have won the league title with 3 different Italian teams.
I was not dissing him, by the way. I was just saying that when he's that good, and if on top he only has 1 game to focus on all week, then it makes it easier. But I agree with all the points that you made. And Inter have a much better squad than Napoli, and you could argue that having played together for so long, they probably were the favorite and better equipped to go and win. And it's also them losing this title as much as Napoli winning.
No, I wasn't being hostile, Jules. I mean, I did get up at 4:00 this morning, so if I'm grouchy, that's it. But yeah, that's the other big talking point about this title. Lowest points total to win a league since 2011, and again, kind of a lot of I think it's instructive when Napoli fans are singing songs about Pedro and making banners about Riccardo Orsolini. So people who've scored goals that have really hurt Inter, players for other teams, not on their own Napoli team. It goes to show that, Napoli have needed help, and they've also needed Inter to kind of drop points, when everyone was expecting them, particularly when Napoli were stuttering in sort of February and March. Everyone expected Inter to then just run away with it. And they didn't, because, the football calendar is ridiculous.
They didn't. Instead, Napoli picked up their second title in 3 seasons, which is pretty spectacular stuff. So, James, the Kevin De Bruyne story, is that going to happen? And Conte, with Juventus this Sunday night as we record, having survived a bit of a scare themselves, to claim that 4th Champions League spot to claim that 4th Champions League spot for next season. Is that where you think Antonio Conte is going?
Well, yeah, I think this week's going to be very interesting, because I think AC Milan will be looking for a new coach. They'll be announcing a new sporting director as well. There are lots of Italian coaches on the market. Allegri, Allegri could have 3 of the big 4 clubs in Italy, or maybe 4 of the big 5 asking him if he would like to take over. With De Bruyne, if you're Kevin De Bruyne right now and you're seeing this stuff about Antonio Conte maybe not being at the club, what does that make you think about, the offer that Napoli are making? Do you want to go and play when you don't know who the manager is going to be? I think that's something that Napoli seem confident about, but they also have to, I think, still persuade Kevin De Bruyne that about what exactly next season would look like in Naples. I think that's still all TBC.
Jules, Paris Saint-Germain are in the Cup Final on Saturday, the Champions League Cup Final. They had one last weekend as well, didn't they?
Yes. They had the French Cup Final on Saturday night at the Stade de France against Reims. And usually, they lost to Rennes 3 seasons ago on penalties in the same stadium in the final. But usually when they are in the final of the French Cup or the League Cup, when it still existed, they're not getting beaten, and they were not getting beaten on Saturday. The gap between the level of the 2 teams was just so enormous. A Reims team that is already thinking about the playoff second leg to stay up in Liga, which is by far their priority, than trying to win the French Cup and qualifying for the Europa League in that way. So it was always going to be a long shot. I don't think they touched the ball in the PSG box in the first half. I think in the end, they had like 2 touches in the PSG box overall or something like that. It was just very one-sided, and it was a wonderful first half from PSG, who could easily have scored 5 or 6 instead of the 3 that they scored. So a good win, perfect to prepare for the final of the Champions League, because there was no injuries. Kvaratskhelia was supposed to play. He had a bad headache, so he went home instead. And in his absence, Doué and Barcola just literally destroyed the Reims defense.
So he played a strong team, Luis Enrique.
Yeah, the strongest. He planned to do it. Stafford-Bloor was in goal because he played 4 of the 5 French Cup games before, so it made sense that he played the final, and Donnarumma was on the bench. Kvaratskhelia would have started instead of Doué, and really the last position we think for the Champions League final will be between Barcola and Doué, and whoever Luis Enrique fancies on that right-hand side. The rest is set in stone, and I think he wanted, at least for an hour, and that's what happened, the strongest 11 to be out there on the pitch to just get a bit of that rhythm a week before the Champions League final.
Inter, by contrast, putting out the B team really for their Friday night visit to Como, who themselves did the job, a 2-0 game, which also saw Pepe Reina making his farewell to football in poignant circumstances, James.
Yeah, a bit of a theme of the weekend, given what we've seen with Dibu Martinez in that Villa Man United game. But yeah, Reina getting sent off. I think he felt it was quite harsh as well against Inter. Cesc Fabregas going over to him. Obviously they've shared many experiences together, but I imagine Pepe did not want to go out like that, even though. Look, one of the reasons behind Como's excellent second half of the season is because they decided that Reina and Emil Aldera were not good enough, and they went out and bought another goalkeeper who was extremely good for them, Butez, in the second half of the season. So, yeah, Adios, Pepe.
Indeed. As for Inter, meanwhile, injury-wise, selection-wise, what are the big talking points ahead of Munich?
I mean, Lautaro has played relatively little since those Barcelona games. So, I think a lot of people's minds go back to maybe before the Qatar World Cup when he played himself into the ground before going into that tournament, had a very bad ankle. I think Inter may be kind of mindful, let's just, take him out of the spotlight, give him a few weeks to just really kind of focus on being his best. I suppose the interesting thing is that, obviously PSG have wrapped up the title weeks in advance. Yes, they had a competitive match in this cup final at the weekend. But, mentally and physically, what's the better way to go into a final? Is it in a more kind of relaxed demeanor in the way that PSG have been able to sort of chill? Or is it in the way that Inter have gone into this where, Inter have had to take the title race down to the absolute final day. And, it's been curious that they've been able to do that in 3 of the last 4 games by playing reserves. It feels like this title race should have been over when you looked at some of the teams that Inzaghi was fielding against Verona, against Torino. It seemed already then that he had his mind very much on this Champions League final. One of the things that has kind of struck me going into this week is that, remember, Atalanta last year suffered the disappointment of losing the Coppa Italia final, so a domestic trophy, in the days leading up to the Europa League final, and it kind of just really reinforced like we absolutely have to take this chance. Inter already have the motivation from losing a final 2 years ago, but I do wonder if also events on Friday kind of just make this mean even more. So from that point of view, I both teams going into this final in very different approaches, I suppose, to the state and condition of their players.
Wow, that sounds dangerous, Jules. That sounds to me like James is predicting Inter to win it. And as we all know, when James predicts Inter as Champions League victors, that...
No, the one thing today, the one prediction, I did actually have someone text me today about so this was about Venezia going down. This is Horncastle in March, Hornstradamus, March 14th. Knowing Di Francesco, it'll come down to the final day and they'll suffer a heroic relegation. Venezia did go down on the final day, having taken the lead against Juventus. I think made it 2-2 against Juventus, lost 3-2, and did go down. So, and
your heart went out to Claudio Ranieri, who much like when was that? 2009, went for half an hour on the final day. He was going to take Roma to the title. Today, 2-0 winners, or leading 2-0 away to Torino. It looked like they were going to get into the Champions League, but then Juve got a penalty. Back to the Champions League final. Who's got the edge? Are you confident about Paris Saint-Germain? What do you think?
I think it's hard to call. I really do. I think because there's pros and cons for both teams. The more I think about it, the more I look into it, the more we talk about it. We've had previews with Reims already, and shows that we've done together. There's more to come when we're in Munich. I just fear that Inter experience and the Inter almost like never dying mentality, as we saw against Barcelona when they could hardly walk on the pitch. They somehow found a way to not just come back late with Acerbi, that incredible Acerbi goal, but then gone through the whole extra time by scoring and qualifying and winning. And I'm like, I don't know how you beat a team like that with that mentality. I think PSG could be better in some department of their team and of the game. For sure, there's a lot of things that this young PSG team does very, very well, or do very well. But I think eventually those kind of games are won with that. Are won with the grit and the resilience and the experience of players who've been there before. And if they haven't won before, they were very close of winning before, and that helps them. And I can easily see a bright young PSG team going for it, playing really well, maybe missing some chances, And then Inter, not so much in control, but all never panicking and scoring a goal on set pieces and winning 1-0. And at the end, me and the kids, and well, 2 of the 3 kids at the stadium, the cousins, because literally my whole family is coming. My brother probably is going to divorce his wife because they booked a holiday for this week. So he's saying like, I cannot not go to the Champions League final. So my sister-in-law is going to go absolutely mad. And all of us crying in the stadium because this is exactly the scenario that I can see massively happening on Saturday night, unfortunately.
Happy now, James?
James, you know what he's doing there.
No, I swear, I promise you.
He's just putting that out there in the hope that the opposite happens. We know that's classic superstition.
It's not. It is a bit of superstition, but you know this is true. Everything I've said is true, right? None of you can dispute what I've just said.
I don't know what's happening with your brother-in-law's family plans. But hey, I don't disbelieve you, Jules. We could talk loads about this game, but it matters what the 2 teams say on the pitch, and that's going to be happening Saturday in Munich.
Just one last thing, because the big debate in France is, should everybody in France want PSG to win this Champions League, right? So everybody's been asked, Didier Deschamps, as a former Marseille captain who lifted the Champions League in 1993, do you want PSG to win? Deschamps, as the national team head coach, has to say, yeah, of course I do. Even Basile Boli, who scored that winner in Munich against AC Milan for Marseille in 93, said, I want PSG to win. We have to be behind the French team. Zinedine Zidane himself saying the same thing as Basile Boli and Didier Deschamps. And yet, what is happening in Marseille? All the Inter Milan shirt that you can buy in Marseille is out of stock. Literally, the whole city has bought Inter Milan shirt. And if Inter Milan win on Saturday, I swear to you, they're going to parade in the street with the klaxon, how do you say, the beeping their horn in the street, almost like if Marseille had won it, because they'd be so happy that PSG lost that final and that Marseille would remain the only French club to ever won the Champions League.
Jules, if Marseille were in the Champions League final, or God forbid Lyon, would you celebrate for them?
Absolutely not. So it's fair enough.
We all know what Jules calls Lyon and Marseille.
Indeed. All right. Well, lovely to speak to you both. James, get some rest. Jules, stay calm. And we'll catch up soon. Up next, we're going to head on to Spain. This episode of the Totally Football Show European Edition is brought to you by FedEx. FedEx is an official sponsor of the Champions League. As a trusted global logistics service provider for businesses around the world, FedEx are looking to shine a light on the innovative small and medium-sized businesses working in the football industry that have shaped the game today and are contributing to a thriving future. We call these the FedEx Champions of Business. These businesses have grown themselves while also building a foundation for success for today's clubs and star players, whether that be at grassroots levels, through performance and analytics, or the development of the fan experience, to name just a few. Go to fedex.com/champions for inspiring stories of businesses in football. That's fedex.com/champions.
Pol Ballús joins us, everybody. Pol, how are you?
Hello. I'm fine.
Lots to discuss, most of it about teams called Real, 2 of whom met this weekend in a tearful occasion at the Bernabeu. Real Madrid against La Real Sociedad, 2-0 to Real Madrid. Kylian Mbappe with the brace, but we're not here to talk about that, or the fact that he took his tally for the season to an incredible 31 goals in his debut season, which is the 3rd best ever for a debut season. Is that right?
I think so. I mean, he's the golden boot for the season here in Spain and everything. So, yeah, pretty remarkable that inside the disappointing season that Real Madrid has had and potentially the problem that they have fitting both Mbappe and Vinicius Jr., he's managed to score this crazy amount of goals.
Anyway, we're not here to talk about that. We are here to talk about Carlo Ancelotti's final day as Real Madrid manager, at least for now, because you just never know, do you? And the send-off that he got, they brought out all his trophies. What was it, 15 of them? 15?
Yes.
And everyone was in floods of tears. So, but it's a very happy goodbye, is that right?
Yeah, it was a very happy goodbye. Yeah. I think it combined really well with Luka Modrić farewell as well, which was really emotional emotional moment. Modric had this quote saying that don't cry because it's over, laugh because it happened, which could be in a lot of mindfulness books, but I think that Luka Modric used it in a very fitting moment. A day of emotions at Real Madrid. It really felt like the end of an era. Toni Kroos was there, Sergio Ramos was there, so it had all this momentum building of everyone at Real Madrid knowing that a lot of things are going to change this summer. They haven't needed a lot of days because as we are speaking right now, Xabi Alonso is being unveiled as Real Madrid manager with Florentino Perez holding a press conference and everything with all the big honors. All this last weekend was all about saying goodbye to this generation, to Carlo Ancelotti, to Luka Modric. It's quite mad that Luka Modric, with all the trophies that he's had in Real Madrid, he has only, and I'm going to say only, because it's like still a lot, but only 4 league titles and 6 Champions League titles. I think it's quite revealing of what Real Madrid are as a club and the sort of love relationship that they have with this competition.
We know what Carlo's going to head off and do, but what about Luka Modric? What's his future?
This is a good question. It's going to be down to him and what he wants to do. There's been rumors about the MLS. It's one option that is still open. I think that the Saudi League is not an option. It's not on the table. But it's going to be up to him. He's a player that he feels that he still can play football, and let's see what he decides to do. It's still a bit up in the air.
So Real Madrid already unveiling Xabi Alonso. Bundesliga imports have tended to do well of late in La Liga with Hansi Flick, of course, at Barcelona, and that man Lewandowski, both of whom were in effect in Barcelona's final game of the season, which you went along to in Bilbao on Sunday night. A 3-0 win over Athletic Club with Lewandowski. Oh, he got a brace. He ended up with 27. Not as good as Mbappe, but still pretty impressive.
He's had the best season in his Barca career. He has scored 41 goals across all competitions at 36. This is really remarkable, if you ask me. Barca ended the season in a similar way in which they started, which was winning thanks to a brace of Robert Lewandowski, because they won the opener in La Liga with a brace from the Pol in Valencia, and now another brace at San Mamés. Really good performance from Barcelona. Hansi Flick was really pleased after the game. And I think that everyone now in Barcelona is focusing more in signings and what do the team really needs to do just to improve that, knowing that it's going to be tough to do a better season next year. A lot of rumors, and not just rumors, but words from Deco and Hansi Flick saying that the priority is to add a new winger or a new attacker, which you might find a bit amusing, given the fact that Lewandowski has scored this amount of goals, and then you have Lamine Yamal, you have Rafinha, you have the best attacking trio in European football. But it's something that they feel that they need a bit more, to have a deeper squad in that front, because in the key stage of the season, when they played against Inter, when they played against Real Madrid, they lacked a bit of an extra body up front, and that's what they want to reinforce.
With what money, though, Paul?
There is a good question, as ever is with Barcelona, because Barcelona's summer is going to be defined by the Camp Nou and whether they can return, whether they can build those VIP seating.
The ones they've already sold.
Yeah, exactly. But the fact that they are not built yet made the audit company that is above Barcelona not allowing this money to be counted on as real money.
I'm just thinking, Dani Olmo, his registration was based on a kind of temporary permission on the basis that the Skybox money was going to be coming in. Does that mean that Dani Olmo will again not be able to play next season, probably?
Not really, because the Dani Olmo thing has been approved by the government. It's gone above Spanish football and it's already sealed and approved. So, that bridge is crossed.
Plenty of others to get over, but we'll deal with that as and when. To run up one or two other details from the end of the Liga season, Celta Vigo finishing 7th, getting into the Europa League. That's huge.
And this would have been like my moment of the week alongside Luka Modric and Carlo Ancelotti, I'd say, because the fact that Iago Aspas scored the winner at 37 with 10 minutes to go at Getafe to get Celta Vigo back to the European competition is just amazing stuff. really deserved, in my opinion, for Celta de Vigo. We have spoken about them quite a few times in the pod this season because they've been one of the most exciting teams to watch in La Liga. Like a Celta manager coming from the youth ranks, Claudio Giraldes is a Celta fan since he's a kid. A team full of academy products, full of young talents. They are really daring. They are really fearless in their approach. They've been able to go to the Bernabeu and give Real Madrid problems. They've go to Montjuic and gave Barcelona problems. So they are this sort of team that are really exciting to see and to watch. And I just can't wait to see them in Europe. I have doubts on whether they will be able to keep up with the amount of games that they will have. But yeah, it's just really great news to see a team like Celta de Vigo and the project that they are starting to assemble being rewarded with European football next season.
Espanyol managed to stay up. They beat Las Palmas, who were already down, sadly. And that meant that Leganés, even though the Pepineros beat Valladolid 3-0 on Saturday, they go down.
Yeah, a bit of refereeing controversy because Espanyol won thanks to a penalty that was a bit soft in their favor. Then they scored a second goal in the injury time. But yeah, I think that at the end of the day, if you want to complain about being relegated, you have to look back to 38 games. Great news for Espanyol as well, because one of the big names that they have in the squad is Joan Garcia, the goalkeeper, who is going to be sold 100% this summer because he's been the best goalkeeper in La Liga this season. And if they had got relegated, his release clause would have dropped up until 15 million. Now it's set at 25 million. This money, which is pretty much guaranteed that it's going to cash into Espanyol, is going to be key to salvage their future and just to, for the structure of the project. And now, the main thing is where is he going to end up? We know that he has been linked to Arsenal last summer, but he wants to play. He wants to go to a place where he's going to be guaranteed that he will play. Barcelona are after him, but it can be a move that has a lot of weight behind it, because from an Espanyol player going to Barcelona, that could be seen as, I don't know if the word betrayal is like too harsh. I think it is, but Espanyol fans are going to take it.
There are some cities where that happens, like in Milan and Inter, players one day at one, next day at the other. But Espanyol and Barcelona, is that even worse than, say, Barca to Real Madrid?
I don't know if worse than that, but from Espanyol fans to seeing one of their own going to Barcelona, that would be, a travesty. That would be like really bad. I think that the relationship between those clubs for Espanyol fans is more bitter looking up to Barcelona. Joan Garcia is one of their own. He's a player that has been kissing the badge all season. He's an Espanyol fan. He's been at the youth ranks for a lot of years, and seeing this happen would be painful, but at the same time, they would cash the money in and it would be great for the club's viability. So let's see what happens.
Paul, I mentioned teams called Real, and the other one that I wanted to ask you about was Real Betis, who will be taking on Chelsea on Wednesday in the Conference League final in Wrocław.
Great news for Real Betis because they are in a great mood now that Isco has been called up for the national team back again. He's going to go back to Spain. It was one of his dream targets, and he's achieved it this Monday when Luis de la Fuente has announced his official list for the Nations League.
So Chelsea on Wednesday, and Isco is one of the people everyone's looking at. Anthony as well, after the incredible half season he's had since his arrival from Manchester. Chelsea, no question, are heavy favourites. They've been the favourites for this tournament all the way through. They've got an incredible list of European titles to their name: UEFA Champions League, Europa League, Super Cups, Cup Winners' Cup, etc. Real Betis have never been
in a European final. No, absolutely. But deep down, they think that they have a chance. They have nothing to lose. They have a squad which is attacking-wise is one of the best that they've had in recent years. And how the moment that Anthony is right now, in the last game of the season, he scored another cracker of a goal. Isco, of course, is in one of the best moments of his life. And then a lot of interesting young talents, such as Jesus Rodriguez, Johnny Cardoso. They have the goods to, believe that something can happen. Anthony has been discussed, and I think that not wrongly enough, as like potentially the best January signing in the history of La Liga.
Ever?
Yeah. in terms of impact and the numbers that he's delivered, he's up there. I'm not able to say if he's the best, but he's going to be remembered as like one of the best. And yeah, everyone is pushing for that. Anthony, as I told you, Antonio de Triana, he's called in Sevilla. He is getting hyped up for this final with all the Betis fans dreaming with this European trip.
I'm just concerned that when he meets a Premier League team again, it'll be kryptonite to the incredible form he's been able to achieve since arriving there.
Yeah, maybe some flashbacks are gonna come back. Let's see.
Let's comfort ourselves with the fact that the last 9 occasions that Spanish clubs have faced English teams in UEFA finals, how many of those 9 finals have the Spanish sides won, Paul?
9?
9.
Okay.
It's incredible.
There we go. Yeah.
Betis' form, looking at it, doesn't look too special coming into this. Is that just because they've been so focused on the cup final that they've not really been putting in the yards in the league?
Absolutely. They have been rotated in the league, even with the Conference League semi-finals. They put the spotlight in that tie against Fiorentina. Plus, there was Villarreal in La Liga, which was the team that they were battling for that spot in the Champions League. That Villarreal was ahead of them, and they had the only focus of La Liga. So it was difficult for them anyway to reach La Liga. So they decided to focus on the Conference League, and I think that it was worth it. And now it's time for them to capitalize on it this next week.
Has much been made in Spain of Maresca's past as a Sevilla player?
Yeah, it has been, as well as his past playing with Isco at Malaga. Yeah. He played with Isco at Malaga, and his past being an assistant under Manuel Pellegrini at West Ham. So yeah, lots of links in there. Real Betis fans, of course, they don't have great memories of Enzo Maresca. As you might know, like the Sevilla derby is possibly, the most tense and the most crazy in Spain, in my opinion. So yeah, plenty of ingredients in that final, which is gonna make this game like a heated one.
You're confident for Betis then, Paul?
I think that they have a decent chance. Now. I mean, it's going to be the game that after 20 minutes, Chelsea are going to be 4-0 up. But I think that Betis, they have this sort of momentum. Everyone is behind the team. It's so difficult to see this sort of momentum in a Sevilla team because the atmosphere in there is mental. But Betis have now that. And when you have that, I think that they have the right to dream.
We'll see what happens on Wednesday evening and perhaps catch up with you again afterwards, Paul. For now, many, many thanks. You're heading back to Barcelona. We salute you. Safe travels. And we'll catch up with you soon.
It's been a pleasure. See you soon.
Seb Stafford-Bloor.
Hello, James.
Listen, I'm not going to beat around the bush. Eric Ten Hag. Bye, Leverkusen. Question mark, question mark, question mark.
Exclamation mark, actually, because he's going to be unveiled in a couple of hours. I'm going to go and do the press conference.
Can I do it? A question mark, exclamation mark, question mark, exclamation mark.
We could do that as a compromise.
To express my sense of shock and disbelief.
And the gravity of the situation, because succeeding Xabi Alonso is a pretty hard task. But hey, here's the thing, and I've been talking to people on social media about this. Obviously, replacing Alonso is tricky, and taking over a team who have already won an unbeaten domestic double, which kind of for Leverkusen is completing football, right? You're not going to do much better than that, so you can only ever equal it at best. And even that's unlikely. But I think this is a good time to be a Leverkusen head coach because Wirtz is off, Jeremy Frimpong is off. Might well be one or two other departures from the team that won the Bundesliga a year ago. At the same time, a lot of players are remaining in situ. So you've got the backbone of a really strong team, high-scoring, high-performing Patrick Schick, Granit Xhaka is still there, Ezequiel Palacios is still there, Alex Garcia, Edmund Tapsoba, Pierre Hincapié, etc., etc. And yet enough has changed so you have this sense of turning the page, right? And so this will become, rather than someone taking over Alonso's team and the team there being compared to the 23-24 side in perpetuity, stumbled over that, didn't we? Over the long term, that's better. It's kind of a new team. And so I feel like it is as much of a fresh start as Ten Hag could hope for. And hopefully that kind of adjusts the context within which he's judged. So I think it's a good moment for him. Also, I think for Leverkusen, we shouldn't be coloured by what happened at Man United. And, it's a good coaching appointment.
Because people who do judge him on that Premier League spell will say, really? Is that the manager you want? But then again, we said the same sort of thing when Bayern Munich chose Vincent Kompany, and that turned out pretty well. Why do you think he is suited then to the job?
I think if you look at the squad demographics, Jimbo, still a very, very young team, albeit sort of tent-pegged by some veteran players. Very young team, demographically more comparable to the team he coached at Ajax. Also, I think, as ever with Manchester United, you have to recognise the noise that surrounds the club and the attention that's paid on it and the level of criticism. And also, let's be fair, what we have learned since Erik ten Hag left the club about how difficult it is to coach, because the coaches change at Man United, the trajectory never seems to. So at some point, you have to recognise that perhaps it's the environment rather than the coach. And where I'm sure Ten Hag had some fault there, and I don't think the football ever came close to replicating what he produced at Ajax. I completely acknowledge that. Leverkusen on the other side, built to play in a certain way. There's no transformation that has to happen here. They're a team that have already been coached at an extremely high standard over the last couple of years, 2.5 years since Alonso took over. Also, remember what Leverkusen is. Forget the fact that they've just won the Bundesliga and played in the Champions League. This is a club that still don't play in any sort of media spotlight. Leverkusen is a town of less than 200,000 people. The town itself is just in the shadow of Cologne. And so you're not going to get a situation where you're immediately going to walk into an environment where you're a saviour. Right, go and win the title. Go and re-qualify us for the Champions League. All the things that happen at Manchester United do not exist at Leverkusen. And so it becomes about the work. It's also, I think, Leverkusen's great strength is, well, two of them really, the communication between CEO Fernando Caro, CEO for football, CEO for sports, Simon Rolfs, and the head coach, and all the kind of the recruitment that goes into that. I always felt at Manchester United as if Ten Hag possibly had too much of a role in recruitment, too much influence over the kind of players that United was signing. Whereas at Leverkusen, at best, he'll be a voice in the conversation. He will not be leading that conversation. He will just be given players to coach and be told to, quote unquote, get on the grass and make it work. And I think that suits him. I think it makes the job a hell of a lot simpler than it was in England.
Let's see. Meantime, this campaign came to a close this weekend with the Pokal Final, which romantically saw third division side Arminia Bielefeld, who'd earned their spot there by defeating no less than 4 Bundesliga teams in a row, take on one more for their chance at silverware. Stuttgart were the opponents. How close did they come?
Not very.
They did have that wonderful chance, though, at the start.
They sure did. At 0-0, they really should have taken the lead. It was a wonderful move, actually, just wasn't converted. And it felt as if this was a bridge too far, because every mistake they made in the first half was ruthlessly punished by a Stuttgart side full of German internationals. Nick Foltemade scored the first goal. Enzo Milot scored the second. By the way, Enzo Milot scored the second goal after Dennis Undav went through on goal in the German Cup final and squared it. Unselfish, Dennis, unselfish. He did end up scoring later in the game, but even so, that takes quite a lot of commitment to the team cause to square that chance. So well done to him. But full-time 4-2, because they pulled a couple of goals back, and there is no sense here really of any deflation or anybody not having a good day out. There are so many Bielefeld fans in Berlin. It was about a quarter of the whole population of the town. 100,000 people in Berlin.
Yeah, so I've seen 100,000 quoted as the number of Bielefeld. So, but that's a huge.
Yeah, I follow a few Bielefeld supporters on Instagram, and some of the things they've posted do support that. Obviously, there weren't 100,000 people inside the Olympiastadion, because I think maybe there were 70,000, maybe more fans who just didn't have tickets, who were in Berlin for the weekend. They had a wonderful time. The day after, they all went back to Bielefeld and had a kind of reception off the balcony of their town hall, and the players were involved there. And of course, they've won promotion from the Dreitliga. They won the title and will play in the Zweite Bundesliga next season. So it's a tremendous success. And actually, their run has earned them. Their run to the final itself earned them around 10 million euros. When we spoke last week about me going down to meet their captain, Marc Cabos, and he showed me the new recovery sauna that had been installed with the money earned from beating Union Berlin in the second round of the competition. So it's been a wonderful success, and fantastic. Well done to them. Well done to Stuttgart, because this has been a difficult old year. Obviously, they finished second in the Bundesliga a year ago, went to the Champions League, lost Sergio Guirassy, lost Vladimir Anton, both to Borussia Dortmund, so had kind of their guts ripped out a little bit, and that showed in a very very disappointing Bundesliga finish. When they were it felt like they were drained by those transfers, but also their involvement in the Champions League. But this is the trophy that Basti Hoeneß deserves for what he's been able to do at the club and what some of those players have achieved. There's this famous footage of Maxi Mittelstadt, the fullback who played for Germany last summer, of course, who a year before he joined Stuttgart was heading to the Zweite Bundesliga as a relegated member of the Hertha Berlin squad. It comes from Berlin, Mittelstadt, and he was in tears at the full time of the semi-final against RB Leipzig because he's going home. And very lovely to see him win a trophy when his career just a couple of years ago was going in completely opposite direction. And so, yeah, it's a trophy they deserve. Stuttgart is a wonderful, big German club that have had a really difficult few decades. Really difficult last decade, actually. But so back into Europe as well. Fantastic.
Yeah, their first silverware since 2007, so almost 20 years. What is it about this season that teams all over the continent are ending long trophy droughts?
Can I point you towards another really dramatic, because the Bundesliga season is not quite over, because we've got the second leg. We're recording this before it happens. We've got the second leg of the relegation playoff, which has been christened the Dorfiko. It's a playoff between two village teams, essentially between Heidenheim and Elversberg. Elversberg come from a village which only has just under 13,000 people. 13,000 inhabitants, a ground which holds around 11,000.
How are they managing to be challenging for a place in the Bundesliga then?
They're just a brilliantly well-coached side. They're a team full of no-name players, no-name coach, but they've kind of profited a little bit, Jimbo, from the chaos in the Zweite Bundesliga, which there were so many teams below Cologne and Hamburg who won automatic promotion who just couldn't capitalize on good starts of the season, kept falling over themselves. Elversberg were the most consistent, and they snuck into the playoff spot in the third place on the last day of the season and have every chance of going up, which is really interesting because the dynamic of the relegation playoff hugely favors the Erste Bundesliga side for all sorts of reasons, because, fundamentally, bigger side, well-funded side, team in Heidenheim's case, who've had 2 years of Bundesliga football, but also a year of Europa Conference League funding and investment. And yet, they might tumble down, which is amazing if they manage to do it. We'll know it by the time this comes out, so that might be a bit deflating, but it's still a great occasion.
Well, best of luck to them in the second leg. It'll be fascinating to see how they get on in the Bundesliga, were they to get there. What kind of attendances, by the way, do they get with their town of, 12,000 people?
Just over 11,000. So either it's the entire town cramming in, or they draw a little bit of a crowd from outside, from the surrounding region. But it's unless everything gets closed, it's like a scene from that Friday Night Lights film where everybody just puts the closed sign on the shop and off they go.
Magnificent. Well, that's another terrific roundup of what's been a great season in the Bundesliga. So look forward to catching up with you during the summer, perhaps certainly after it when the Bundesliga returns. For now, many, many thanks.
Farewell, Jimbo.
Seb Stafford-Bloor. Well, that brings us to the end of today's European edition of the Totally Football Show. We will, of course, be continuing our coverage of the big European sides as they battle in the Club World Cup and the Nations League for the national sides and loads of other things over the summer. But that's what we're part of the Euro edition until the leagues get back underway in August. Many, many thanks then to Seb and Pol and James and Jules earlier, to our producer, Lucy Oliva, and most of all to you, listener. Thank you very much indeed for being with us. Hope you have a terrific summer and that you continue to keep it totally. And we'll be back with the Euro Show again when autumn rolls around. For now, from all of us here, it's goodbye.
The Totally Football Show podcast is available 3 times a week, bringing you all the football news you could reasonably be expected to care about. We've got views, we've got stats, we've got analysis, we've got some of the best football writers around. And the whole thing is absolutely free. So have a listen on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or all the usual places by clicking on the link below.